people from different steps throughout the value chain and sort of different parts of where a consumer experiences music and how they interact. And so I think what would be great first is if each of you could say who you are, where you're from, and really succinctly what you do and what your company does. So we'll start here, to my right.
My name is Donnie Dinch, and started a company called Will Call. And we sell last-minute tickets to live shows, currently only in SF. So I imagine we're, without a doubt, the smallest company up here, but moving at a pretty fast pace. So.
Awesome. I'm Sam Valenti. I have a couple companies. One's called Ghostly, which is a music and media company, so I'm more of a record label publisher. And a new company called Drip FM, which I co-founded, and it's a music subscription platform for labels.
What's up? Michael Serg with Vivo. I head product and technology, and we essentially take music videos and make them available in their best quality form, of course, on the internet, iOS, Android, Xbox, and wherever else we can find it.
My name is Josh Builder, and I'm the CTO of a company called The Orchard, and we are the largest independent digital distributor. And outside of distributing digital content to retailers, we build a whole suite of diverse products and tools and services for our clients, which are record labels and artists.
So, when you look at this and look at the group's composition, we have everything from the label to distribution to consumer engagement to live music. And I'd be interested, when looking at this ecosystem, how do you see yourselves working together? And when we have this sort of self-sustaining ecosystem and opportunities for cooperation, how do you see that evolving from a product perspective, and what opportunities do you see?
Start at the end.
Sure. At The Orchard, we spend a lot of time thinking about what distribution is and what it means, and really it's, we view it as it's being in the middle, and it's being in the middle of all of the things you'll hear about today, and it's how can we be a better, more expansive middle, whether it's distributing content, distributing your social media presence, working with sites like Vivo, and what can we do to continually widen that and make the complicated problems simpler for our clients.
Sure. Yeah, we were sitting talking about how we all work together, and I realized that one of our artists on my label is on Will Call tonight or tomorrow night at the Mezzanine. Count Cruz is playing, and I think people are getting comfortable doing what they do really well, and not everybody's trying to be everything. I think it's nice that if I'm going to embed a video, it doesn't have to be something a embeddable widget off my site. I'm going to use probably a Vivo video or YouTube video, but was uploaded by somebody else, very possibly. And we were just talking about how we should be talking more often, because really we're really all trying to achieve the same end, and letting people do what they do really well, and then bringing that together is a better way than trying to be everything to everybody.
And so you have artists, and you have artists that are both on Vivo with videos, yeah?
Right, exactly.
All the time. So that's how this works. And we could conceivably work with Will Call to the extent you want to distribute your growth out. You click an artist's name, or we can send you a push notification when there is availability or whatever.
Right.
And obviously that network effect and that scale could be used for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, one thing that I think that we're recognizing is that, and this kind of might come, I have a background in package design, and one thing that became a really big trend in the past few years has been portion control. So you can buy 3 Oreos at a time or something. And so I think I look at things like Drip FM or even what Will Call is doing, and trying to just moderate the amount of information, curate the amount of information that people are seeing. And so I think that kind of helps. And then on top of that, whenever we do display an artist or something like Count Cruz, while it's not in a current build of our app and stuff, but featuring certain videos, I think that we definitely should be talking a lot more.
And I think as you're looking at sort of how you work together and best create that, how do you approach looking at cooperation around new opportunities for revenue within product development, and figuring out how do we grow the entire pie and help people understand it's either not a zero-sum game, or that they're just new innovative opportunities for obviously music, which is going through these sort of shifts currently in consumption and revenue models.
I think it all, and as it relates to product development in particular, I think it's essentially the KPI. What is your goal? What are you trying to grow? In my case, it's video views. So what I try to do is align myself and align the rest of my peers in our company with those KPIs. And so long we're all on the same page, they're doing good. It's the minute that those diverge that you end up in trouble. So I think it's really about maximizing video views. And so as we talk about new features and new development, what's going to drive that? As an example, we found that we made a decision last spring to do only Facebook registration. That's kind of a bold decision when we were doing email and Twitter and Google+, and there's always like 5 different ways to authenticate, right? But what we realized is we can only build one good experience at a time. So let's do that. So we would take somebody who registered through Facebook, we'd take all the artists that they liked, and we would convert that and ingest that into a playlist. So all of a sudden, within moments of joining Vivo, you've had this, not only this experience that's personalized with videos that we know you like, but it's also now social, and it's also syndicating in the ticker and so forth. So that's a great way, that was a great example of the company aligning to one end goal. And I think that should be the way all decisions are made, is through the KPI and through the data that supports it.
I think additionally I'd add that, from our perspective as an enabler of sorts, that we constantly ask ourselves if the product is open, and we promote openness. I mean, something like, Vivo, when we built some of our platforms, didn't exist, right? But does the product you're building have space, from a technical and a design perspective, to grow a little bit with the ecosystem as it evolves and take on new partners?
Great, and I would probably add to that, as we build our product specifically for consumers, the goal is, to get people to see more shows, and we do that by coming up with a certain set of assumptions, and we want to make sure that every decision we make from a product perspective fulfills those assumptions. And so, in the same way that your KPI has more views, for us, when we want to get more people in the seats, we know that they don't like to have a lot of information, or it needs to be quick, and the purchase process needs to be incredibly simple, and so that kind of helps drive our product as well. And
One
so
thing,
sorry.
One thing we did that you should do, I think, is on the iOS app, is what we've done is we looked at the music library, so we know about all the 300 artists that you already like,
Right.
and we build playlists around that. You could do that and do a related artists for acts on the local level that I would like, right? Because I looked at your app and I loved it. I just didn't know any of the acts. But if you told me that they were like some other act that I do like,
Right.
I'm all over it, right?
Absolutely.
So as you're working on product development, you sort of talked about views and different metrics are important. What are those KPIs that you each use, and how do you incorporate that into your product development process to make sure you're striking the appropriate balance between sort of data-driven decision-making with sort of intuition and sort of standard, notions of product design?
I can take a crack at that. So when we launch a new product line or enhance an existing one, and we obviously take metrics back from how our user base labels and artists use that product. And for us, it's really, with any new launch or any new piece of promotion or any new feature, we see this big spike, right? Because we go out there and we cause it to happen, and then it goes down and it settles on a level of normal usage. And at that point, we go back and we look at our product, and we find that 20% of the product is actually getting 80% of the use, and what are those features that are really being used and are sticky after we sort of force them in someone's face. And oftentimes we go back and we make the product more about those, and we sort of begin a little fat trimming exercise. And obviously it's not the most efficient way to do it, but we take our best guess at first, but we end up going back and really refining over the course of some time, using that data and those KPIs.
Yeah, it's all, product development is iterative, right? Building a product never ends. It's ongoing, right? You've got to open it up and let it breathe a little bit, right? That's the point. It's never like just build it, execute it, it's on the shelf and done, because that doesn't really sustain. So I think it's both an art and a science, because while I love to do data-driven stuff, it's hard because sometimes you can get caught into data-driven decisions. And if you wait for too much data to make a decision, you can make it faster, it's not going to matter to enough people. Right? So in the case of the Facebook registration thing I gave earlier, that took a little bit of cojones along with the data, right, as well. So you had to really step up. So what we saw as a result was a 5x to our registered users. And of those registered users, they viewed like 8x more videos than those that weren't registered, yielding yet another KPI.
Yeah, I think we err on the side of everyone wants to check the box, right? Like, oh, do you have this? Do you have this app? Are you doing mobile? And having all sorts of integrations makes sense on paper. Like, oh, anybody can come in through email, whatever. But by limiting the ability to just Facebook and then making it better, it's a much more you made the product more rewarding. So I think it's important not to be sort of pressured into moving the product towards like everybody all the time. I mean, look at Instagram, right? It's like iOS forever and until they open Android, but they got it, they nailed it first before they opened up to everybody. I know it's kind of a different topic, but
No,
it's
That's the deep versus wide thing.
yeah, I think these days deep is, and what you're doing, you're not going after every artist right now, you're just kind of testing some ideas. And with Will Call, I think with Drip, we're just going after, we're not going after, but we're talking to just labels of a certain style or a certain kind. Labels with fans, not a genre kind. Labels with a brand and a history. And I think we learn a lot from those relationships because they're a little deeper, as opposed to trying to have every label or every artist, which isn't going to happen. You know, we're not built to do that.
Right. I would add to we focus on trying to build a product for a very we're at an early stage, and our focus is on trying to build a great product for 10,000 people. If we get 10,000 people to like this, then we're doing something right, and we can use data from that to extrapolate into other medium and other type of genre and stuff.
All good products, I think, start. I mean, Facebook is for college. SoundCloud is for electronic musicians, arguably. I think people want to get big so fast that they forget that all great things start with a dedicated base that really gives a shit about the product. You know? Is there a swear jar? But that's $1 or somebody.
No, I think, yeah,
Not here.
everyone can do a drink whenever they swear, and I think we'll just find ourselves drinking more as the panel goes on. But we've talked about sort of what can happen in terms of best leveraging data and testing frameworks and how you do that. And I think what would be interesting, I can say from personal experience, it's been a problem constantly dealing with on the product side. And I should have said I work for Spin, that's where I'm from. Hi, I didn't introduce myself. But one of the problems I'm dealing with is from a product development workflow, how do you deal with all of the stakeholders that are unique in the music experience? So for me, it's editorial, and how do you balance that? And I'd be curious for you, what are some of the methodologies you've developed for best incorporating techniques for creating these great products? How are you building, how are you scaling effectively, and working with your teams to manage the agility necessary in the current marketplace with having the structure to actually make sure things are actually getting done?
Okay, so when I got to Vivo about just over a year ago, I was looking at it in isolation from the end user perspective, the user of these products and services. And so I built a new Vivo as a result of that, and improved things for them, I think. And what ended up happening was I learned along the way that I have additional customers, not just the people that are doing videos, but the labels that actually give us the videos or license us the videos. That's a big deal. The brands that advertise and put ads in between these videos, the frequency at which they're going to be available, and all of that. So it turns out to be a balancing act at the end of the day. So the decision, what we've done is we've implemented a matrix, and it sounds more process-oriented than it is, but it's really just, at my desk I have this whiteboard, and whenever somebody wants something, I usually get an email. I usually get a lot of emails every day. I start to put these things on the matrix, and that's what yields. It's like we're looking for value, company building value, sustaining value, not just perceived value. We talked about perceived value earlier, not just perceived value, but for real value. It's like, dudes, let's be honest with ourselves. Is this going to matter? Is this going to move the needle at all? If it doesn't move the needle, it can't be on the matrix.
And another thing that we face with that is we build such a diverse set of product lines is balancing between what we know the user wants and what we think the user needs. And they are, we find very often, not a conflict, but not the same thing. And you can't just cut off, from a feature set standpoint, you can't just say you're not going to deliver what you know from data and from experience and focus groups and stuff like that your users want because it doesn't match with your strategic value or your goals. But so it's a balancing act, and I think the we're talking about perceived value, and sometimes users want things that create perceived value, and they don't necessarily move the needle, and we have to give on that sometimes, and it's a constant discussion.
Hey, at least you're all talking about it.
Yeah.
And so you've talked about sort of building to the users. I think what's unique about all of you is you have different users that you're beholden to, be it the labels, the promoters, the actual end user, and different types. How do you balance being able to tell them what is perceived value versus actual value, and then also weighing what goes into the matrix when a label wants something and artist wants something versus what user wants. Obviously, I think there's an active reconciliation there, and I imagine that's a difficult judgment to make.
I'll just quickly, we do it a lot. We do it through interface and interface design in terms of using UX to push people in one direction or the other. Because we can't force people, and in our position as a distributor, we're there to serve our clients. So, but we can make, subconscious suggestions.
I try to go with like we scratch our own itch kind of thing. I think that's if you can build for yourself. It's not a self-centered thing like making yourself happy. It's just as a label, we know what works for us and our artists, and so that's what we put into Drip. And we can go confidently to other labels and say, this is what we think will work for you. So I think you can't go wrong if you. We're all fans of music too, so it's like it's easy to pretend there's some sort of mythical demographic that does things a certain way, but I think we assume a lot about people, and really people are very similar. We all want kind of the same things, which is to feel like we're part of something that in good quality, feel like we're supporting things we care about. So I don't think it's wrong to put yourself in the chair as a user for your products.
And I would completely agree. I think that Will Call, all the founders, the other two and myself, have zero entertainment background, and we completely built the app based from a consumer perspective. This is how we want to go see things. It's incredibly difficult right now. And we focused on building for people like ourselves that live in urban areas that have, the flexibility to change plans at the last minute. And so we basically built this whole product and have since then it's been a balancing act trying to shoehorn it into an existing industry that's generally not the most flexible. And so I think that I kind of equate it to if you have like a huge box in your hand and you're trying to open a door, you like lean up against the wall and then open it and then swing in. It just very it takes a little bit of finesse and you can't really tell anyone exactly how to do it. But I completely agree with kind of work focusing on yourself if you can.
I think what's unique about all the companies up here as well is that you're in the position of balancing not only creating compelling end user experiences, for different types of end users, but also in creating platforms that can scale and approaching product design from a platform perspective. It'd be interesting to know sort of what are some of the learnings and insights you've had as approaching designing business and designing a product from a platform perspective.
What's the question?
How do you build a platform and make it awesome?
Oh, so look, it comes down to intention. What's the goal? What's the problem you're solving? In the case of some of us up here, it's about entertainment, right? That solves the problem. The world's a pretty shitty place sometimes, right? We all need entertainment. So if you could deliver entertainment experiences that are foremost personalized to a user and that can grow, so maybe you can add some parts social to it and create sort of loops, viral loops that allow them to come back and enter this experience over and over and over again, along with their friends. I think those are fundamentals. I think when I built the Vivo platform last spring, it was personalization, social, and continuous play. The combination of those things kind of lifted all of our KPIs, and as a result, it's all way better than it used to.
I'd say from building a platform, have a vision, build it piece by piece, and don't be afraid to change the vision as you put a piece in place that completely tells you something else and moves you in a totally different direction, both data-wise and also instinctually. I think as you evolve and you put another brick in place, we find everything changes. I think the nature of the new media technology space, it just changes so quickly that to just build a platform with blinders on is just it's not the way. And then you end up with a platform really at the end of the day that it works if it's done right.
For us, it was about trying to build a use case that works in a very specific manner, and then learning from that and then extrapolating. And I think that I totally agree that whatever your vision is, you need to kind of be able to adapt to it. I think, for example, one of the first assumptions we made is that we only sell tickets to shows happening this evening, and it was kind of idealistic, and it worked. But then I was super against for the longest time selling things a day in advance, and then we did it, and then we sold more tickets. So then it worked. but I think you have to be able to have that humility that your original assumption or thesis was probably a little bit wrong.
So it always is wrong.
So we just touched on personalization and sort of social customization. I'm curious for your respective products, how do you balance that sort of incorporation of the social graph, personalization with the importance of a authoritative, act of curation, and how you develop that independent voice versus allowing someone's taste to flow, be it from the songs in their iPhone to someone who knows exactly what's going on in the live music scene in that city, and balance curation versus personalization and discovery.
We have all different places kind of in the taste making sector, Orchard has to be, you have to be open.
Right,
Yeah,
I mean, like, it's funny, so I build stuff for Sam.
Yeah.
Sam builds stuff for music fans. Like, it's a totally different, perspective. And then, if you it's all, so different. I actually think Drip FM is a great way to,
We're just a curator of curators. So we're building and he's, his app is in Vivo as well. They're places of taste built on other people's tastes. And I think there's a lot of implied taste and obviously editorial is the greatest example, where people respect editorial because it is focused. Like Spin represents, and a lot of the buzz, what you guys are doing, like Accelerator being my favorite ever magazine. It is about a perspective, and I think if you put yourself in that place, if you are a perspective product, you have to live it. If you have to be open, then that's a different thing. But kind of knowing where you fit in that gradient probably dictates that.
Yeah, I would say that Drip is probably an excellent example of like a strong curator that telling you what's cool, and some people just really like that, including myself. And I think that when the way that we look at social integration for Will Call, we don't take into consideration what you like at all. We tell you that these are the best things that you can do tonight, regardless of who you are. And I think it's kind of an homage to some extent to an older type of like an editorial perspective on things, and I think people kind of appreciate that. We do, however, integrate social by certain things. We let, when users sign up, they can connect with Facebook, and when that happens and they buy a ticket, we send friend purchase notifications to all their other friends that have the app. And that's been this super lucrative way to move a lot of inventory. But as far as, it just how do we use, like, we don't want to tell you that this show is necessarily cool because 10 of your friends said it's cool. We want to tell you it's cool because it's fucking cool. And then all of your friends will fall into place. Yeah, sorry.
That's cool.
Cool.
So we have this kind of general purpose audience kind of thing we have to deal with a little bit. So we do a programmatic approach to playlisting, video playlists. So if you go to the Vivo homepage on any of the apps or the web, you'll see things that are programmed each day, and they rotate through. There's like it's a long homepage you can scroll through and so forth. It's kind of like a carousel effect. But then once you, and so the good news is somebody that just lands in from YouTube, coming from YouTube or something, they can just watch a video at a moment instead of watching it, doing the experience. But if they actually sign up and register and do all that, and so what happens is when they watch these videos, it'll show up in their activity feeds that they're watching. So now their friends can see what they're watching, and they can latch on and actually watching them back too. So it's this loop that gets created. So in music is, and it's funny, we have this thing, and I'm not positive, I think we were the first to do this, I don't know, but the social on and off button. So if I'm going to watch like a Hall & Oates video, it's not the coolest thing to watch right now, but I'm in the Hall & Oates, Man Eater and all that stuff. So I'll watch that. I'll do the social off thing. So nobody sees it. It's like porn mode, private browsing, So
I want that stuff recorded. I want to know, like, in 20 years, like, what I really been doing.
Yeah. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. For better or worse.
That might be a very scary time capsule. But we've
I'm
talked
out
a
my
bit.
barber strategy.
We all have our places. We've talked a bit about sort of social and how that plays. What are some other technologies that are making your lives easier or exciting that you're finding sort of at that cutting edge are enabling you to make more compelling product?
I'll start by saying for us it's definitely, without a doubt, push notifications on mobile devices. I think that there's zero argument to thinking that push notifications aren't the next inbox. And I think being able to do those effectively and adding tons of value is incredibly important. And it's something that internally from a product perspective that we focus heavily on to make sure that whenever we send push notifications that that we take with respect, when was the last time we sent you one? How often are you receiving these? Do you even really care about these friends? And so I'm really excited about the release.
I think next big sound is interesting, and just that level of analytics. I don't know what I'm using them for quite yet, but I know that those indicators are becoming, like Wikipedia. I didn't realize how many hits our artist Wikipedia gets. You know, how that's really become like your first click for a lot of things. I'm also a big email fan. I know emails like come under fire, but I think email, relevant email is super powerful. If it's from a source that you want and it actually gets you somewhere, it's easy to overlook.
Yeah, I'd actually say to interject. On the, for us, it's been on the editorial side. Email is an incredibly important motivator because it enables us to provide that catch-up opportunity. And when looking at news specifically, the element of curation becomes incredibly important from email engagement. So I think it is an interesting balance between push notifications as well as email when looking at is it about immediate engagement or sort of being able to play that catch-up.
I want on the push notifications there. I mean, any of like the iOS games that make the in-app purchases. I mean, we're increasingly fascinated with like ways to get people to take action, right? So Next Big Sound is an amazing example of data that's they're cracking the code, right, in terms of like what's going on. And so, what are the ways that people get people to take action on things like that? And for us to be able to use those techniques, whether it's all kinds of notifications, alerting our labels about something and making recommendations, or push notifications. I mean, that's the stuff that really fascinates me.
I'm into HTML5. We didn't have a mobile web offering when we got to Vivo. We had some iOS, Android, we had web. And I started looking at the data and realizing there's a lot of traffic that's trying to get to mobile web, but they're getting to the web and not able to see it. What they kept landing on was this, go get our iOS app, go get our Android app. That sucks. So we changed that, built a mobile web app, used HTML5, and as a result of our web traffic, something like 15% of it is on mobile web. So people are now watching videos instead of getting this landing page that says go get our app. So we've reduced the friction in getting people to watching videos.
So touching on HTML5, how are you balancing? I think we've seen the incredible potential of responsive design and using HTML5, but balancing that with sort of user expectation around native applications and interactions, and also sort of the explosion and proliferation of Android. How is that impacting what you do day to day and balancing native versus HTML5?
I think it's still largely an app world, native app world, and so I think over time it will begin to shift more. But for now, we are doing the right thing by having kind of more resources on our apps and a little bit less on mobile web. But it's growing quickly, so it's not something we can't not take more seriously.
For us, it's been a really hard decision between the native app and mobile web. And I know we were talking about it before about Facebook coming out and saying like one of their biggest mistakes was spending so much time on not their native apps. And I get that, but for us it's a matter of, and again, we still continually go back and forth on what the right thing to do is, and it's really just a perspective on what we think the user wants, and if it's a singular focus and taking that landing page and doing things like that, and mobile web is way better. But if you need and down the future that you want to curate this deep interaction with your on a number of different fronts, I think the native app is unfortunately the way to go.
I would agree to that. I think that when Will Call first launched, it was iOS only, and primarily because there was only 4 of us, and we had 0 Android developers. And then we realized that Android was pretty big. We always knew it, but we wanted to make sure that people liked it on iOS first. And it was definitely the premier, internally the premier version of how we expected Will Call to be. And we had a discussion of certain sacrifices that we need to make in order to get Android users, using Will Call. And the biggest things, the more important parts of the native app for us, or the mobile app, were the notifications and being able to have mobile commerce. And so for Android, we were able to execute those using an HTML5 Sencha app, wrapped in PhoneGap. And it's not the best performing app, but everyone on Android gets the notifications and can make a purchase. And so it's a great kind of intermediary step, for now.
Yeah, I mean, on the responsive design thing, I mean, we've been going back as best we can, outfitting our pages, with responsive design that we think people are going to potentially land on from their mobile device, but that's very different than building a mobile app to which we push people into it to achieve a certain objective. So we've definitely, the responsive design has become, a big piece of the direction we're going just for our sites.
Right, and I was just saying, the other thing I think with having mobile web apps and whether you, I mean, in your example, having a native app and then pushing people to that native app, I think that for better or worse, I guess it kind of seems right now that we're at a mercy of the Android or the iOS, the Apple App Store, and the process to actually install an app. I think if it was much easier to install directly from a mobile web page, I think we would opt to do that all the time. But the fact that you need to go to a separate app and log in and then punch yourself in the nuts is just terrible.
Right. Well said.
So we've talked about how mobile is shaping things in your product development cycle. I'd be interested how location and mobile is influencing what you do and sort of the importance of the rising vector of location data.
Yeah, I'm sort of a bad one to go first.
It's all
Not really.
It's incredibly important for us. I guess earlier when I was referring to friend purchase notifications and the way those work, primarily right now we only send, if you and your friends live in the same city and they're all on will call and you're connected via Facebook, we send notifications to people in your metro area. And I mean, what that does is, one, it helps us, notifications become more applicable and they make more sense for you to get those. And you don't really brag to your friends in Arkansas that don't have anything cool to do that night when you do these notifications. So I think that location is incredibly important. Out of the gate, we thought we were going to do significantly more. I guess it was going to be much more important on a more granular level in the city. But what we found is that for our product, just general metro area notifications help quite a bit.
Anyone else on the location front?
Yeah, I mean, so we've always been into location. We have this feature called Music Maps, which allows you when you're watching videos to look around in your local area and see what are the hot videos being viewed right now. And it's one of those things that, the data says not a gazillion people care about, but it's a good use of it while we have it. But really what it does is it validates that, okay, that's an ingredient for us that we need to do something more with, and we will do something more with hopefully in the next quarter.
So we've talked about sort of KPIs you use internally for product development. I'm interested for each of you in the sort of client services perspective, what are the core metrics that those using your service are asking for? Be it the clubs or the promoters that you're integrating with, or the musicians, et cetera. What are those KPIs they're tracking?
For us, it's a balancing act between the whole causation and correlation thing. Our clients definitely want to see the effect of some action on their digital activity, and are very quick to put a stake in the ground that an event happened and therefore X, Y, and Y happened after it. And for us, it's trying to get them to hold back and look at the bigger picture. I'm not sure that that's a direct answer to the question, but really looking at the next big sound stuff and helping them make sense about what metrics not to get excited about, not to change their plans about and be a little bit smarter about it.
For us, it's really music video views. That's what it comes down to. And the good news is we're all aligned with that. The awkward thing from a product standpoint is sometimes, the views are inflated by the fact that you just got a really popular One Direction video that millions of people are watching. So everything spikes, everything's up, and then so that makes it look like the next week when it's kind of a normalized level that you're blowing chunks, right? So that's not good. So what we try and do is each week I make it a point to actually report to my peers and to the whole company. I send out a company-wide email every Friday after a couple of these. And it's basically what do we get done this week and what does it all look like? And usually when the data is a little bit skewed, the good news is we have a good video premiere to point to. And when it's not, we blame it on the prior week that had a video premiere.
I mean, ghostly, our KPI is dollars per artist. That's the lifeblood of our business, is paying artists and now paying labels with Drip FM. So that's what they want to see. And Orchard is a big part of that, and all of our partners, we're obviously helping brand our artists and build relationships for them, build their fan bases, but the bigger our royalty statements, the more successful I feel that we're doing the right job. So whatever does that is better.
Yeah, and it shows taking all those numbers, that success, which is sales and interactions, and blending it into a picture of like what worked. Like we did all these things together and they worked. Or we didn't.
Yeah.
So touching on commerce, what exciting opportunities do you see in your respective spaces around new opportunities for monetization, be it concert attendance, physical goods? What are you looking at towards the future to create new revenue opportunities?
So for us, obviously selling tickets is our number one opportunity for revenue, but I think that there's a significant more value to be extracted, and I think that for us it requires a certain amount of transparency and partnerships with other existing platforms that are either moving inventory or promoting shows. I think that when we look at, we're capable of moving X amount of tickets in a day because we just put, a notification on 10,000 people's phone. I think that's great, but also there's a lot of value in the amount of activity and the general just mind share that we move towards the show. And I guess for us it's about how do we transparently share that data and get data in return from the other existing partners and use that in order for everyone to have a bigger pot to kind of pull from.
Yeah, for Vivo, it's really how to do more and more interesting and compelling ad experiences, I think. And I think it's a balance between a good quality user experience and a good quality ad experience, and how do you get those to work together. And it's something that we wrestle with quite a bit. For example, recently I redesigned our video watch page, and there used to be for those of you that speak ads, there was a 300 by 250 basically on the right-hand side, and it made us create a video to be like this size, and so we had this right column of stuff. And more recently, we were able to widen the video player and make the ad a little bit smaller into a 300 by 60, but then add 300 by 250 further below the page. So now everybody kind of wins. So now we have the biggest video player in the world and the highest quality video player in the world, of course. But now we have the ad as well, and that recognition is there. So kind of everybody wins, and I think that's what we continuously go through. We think about how long pre-rolls should be, whether the pre-roll should be right before the video or after the video, how many videos in between. So these are the kind of knobs that we turn every day.
At high level, we try to make sure that our clients quickly and intelligently take advantage of any of the ever emerging revenue opportunities, whether it's streaming or things that are just happening. We want to make sure that our client base is there and represented and making the most money they can from those different places.
I think you're trying to sell relationship, right? I mean, music shouldn't be a should I or should I not buy this album mentality. It's like, am I invested in this artist or this label or what have you? So I think that's increasingly, we have an online store where we sell products like headphones and desktop objects, things that relate to the ghostly aesthetic. So for us, it's like, well, a one-time purchase is great, but I'd rather have the hearts and minds of the fans that we work with. And I think there's various ways to do that, but once you get away from commoditizing just the unit, but also thinking about the sort of wide spectrum of opportunities, then you have a career possibility.
So talking about how that user relationship's evolved, what changes have you seen in user expectation recently that's informed what those knobs are you're turning in order to create these new experiences and products?
The ability to quickly understand all of the data that's coming out, because it is immense, and it never stops, and to be able to it wasn't as important as it is right now. I think across certainly the label community and the artist community, the actionable data has become so much come to the forefront recently, and it's a lot to take in, and for us to be able to quickly synthesize that and turn around some bit of intelligence has emerged as a need that wasn't there 18, 24 months ago.
So I think, looking forwards, as people on the technology side, what do you think that the labels need to be doing to better work effectively like technology companies? We've talked a lot about product development and innovation and technology decisions, and I don't think these are fundamentally conversations that people necessarily would equate with the labels. And I think for those of you sitting up here dealing with these clients, how do you feel like the industry needs to shift forward in order to best enable the innovation you need to do?
I think it would be great if they were able to start to migrate from a material world, like this is my sign, I own the sign, to an access-based world. I have access to the sign anytime of day or night. Those are very different things. And it's not just them, it's the end user that also is starting to kind of show some signs toward that end.
Anyone else on the label side, or think sort of general advices you're seeing moving forward, or what innovations? I think generally looking beyond the labels, I'd just be sort of curious, as you're looking at the precipice of technology innovation, what are the things you're waiting on with bated breath to sort of happen to enable you to do better things, be it at the API level, or just in terms of consumer interest, what would sort of help make your lives easier and more exciting?
I mean, I think as well speaking on the label side, like we're supposed to be taste engines. You know what I mean? We're not distribution companies anymore. That was what labels meant, was production, manufacturing, distribution, promotion. That work has been dispersed. Artists have great opportunities to self-distribute, and that's awesome. That's democratized. But labels serve a function that I think almost is quasi-management, like building teams around artists. That's a really big part of our job. And making sure we have the right partners, whether it's distribution or publicity. Labels should think less like squatters and more like liaisons or like facilitators, So I think once you change that mentality from product to service, it gets a little more compelling, the value of what a label is.
Yeah, I agree, and I'd like to see like a label in that state who's not afraid to pull some levers and take some risks and see what happens on the other side of this door and mess around is like a mentality that needs to be better adopted.
Great, so I'd like to open it up to the floor for questions. So does anyone have anything they'd like to ask?